Hello, all my entrepreneurs and business leaders, and welcome to the Michael Esposito Show, where I interview titans of industry in order to inform, educate, and inspire you to be great. My guest today is an executive vice president working 24/7 to ensure his customers and employees receive the care they need to succeed. In 1928, his great-grandfather founded the company. Today, he is the fourth generation owner to run the family-owned business, Amthor International. They know the importance of treating customers like family. Please welcome Brian R. Amthor.
Good morning, Michael. Thank you. I appreciate you having me on your show.
Welcome. What's the R stand for?
Robert. Robert's my middle name.
I saw the R there and I was like, there's got to be a significance to that R.
Yeah, so, all the business forms require you have a middle initial, so it's just you get used to writing it down. So.
You got to have the three initials.
Exactly right.
So before we get into your story,
yep.
Which we're going to dig deep into because you got 4 generations to unravel for us.
Exactly.
And we're fortunate today. This is a Michael Esposito show first to have your son in studio. William, if you want to come up to the mic and just say hello to everybody.
Hello.
So William's here.
Yep.
William, what school did you go to again?
Chapel Field Christian School in Pine Bush.
In Pine Bush. In what grade?
5th.
5th grade. And William, you mentioned you were going to be in a spelling bee soon?
Yep. In Montgomery at Harmony Christian School in May 25th.
All right. Should I throw you a stumper or do you want an easy one?
Easy.
An easy one? Spell Denten.
Denten, Denten.
Nice.
Very good.
All right, that was a little shameless plug for me.
There you go.
But you asked me a question, Brian, earlier on about the podcast and the show.
Yeah.
And the way that you framed it was about you're in business and you're like just curious. So why don't you ask it, and I'd be happy to answer it on air for you.
Yeah. As a businessman, you look at everything business related, right? Because that's how your mind works. And this is my first podcast I've ever done, and I see what you do here. And I was asking, as an entrepreneur, how do you make money doing this? Right? And again, not to be overstepping my bounds or anything,
right.
but just I was interested is like, how do you doing this podcast, make a living doing it? So that's really, I was interested in learning about that.
Right. And that's a good question. It's a question that my wife asks me.
I hear that.
It's a question my parents ask me, and it's a question I ask myself. But so I think to answer your question directly, and I think anybody who's doing a podcast, the direct answer is the way that you make money doing a podcast is you grow a listener, an audience. Mm-hmm. You grow an audience, and then from there, eventually you can get some sort of sponsorships, advertising. Maybe a platform picks you up and starts paying you, like Joe Rogan, right?
Right, sure.
So that's definitely the dream.
Mm-hmm.
But while that's the dream, I don't think that, because the road is hard,
mm-hmm.
I don't think that's the reason why a podcaster or anybody who does some sort of entertainment or art gets into it.
Right.
It's got to be a
it's
passion.
Kind of a long, hard road to get to a certain point. Sure.
Yeah, it's got to be a passion. It's got to be something that you love to do.
Mm-hmm.
I've had other people reach out to me who want to do podcasts and ask me like, what does it take and what do you do and all that stuff. And I explained to them, and because they also asked the finances about it.
Sure, of course.
And I explained to them that you have to really love it and you have to really want to do it because the finances aren't there in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Unless this is, and I'm also probably speaking out of turn because I'm not a true podcaster. Like I didn't get hired by iHeart to podcast for them.
Right.
I got offered a spot to come here and do a podcast. So there might be people out there that as a profession look for a job on Indeed and they're, as a podcaster and they get paid a salary. That I don't know anything about.
Sure.
As a business owner like yourself and like myself, the way that we're doing it, it's because I really just enjoy learning about people's stories. Yeah. And that's why I do it. And how I believe eventually it'll become an income for me and the companies that I have. So the podcast is on Michael Esposito Inc., which is my media company. It doesn't make any money. It, in fact, probably loses money because I spend more money trying to make sure I get guests and be able to do everything that I'm doing. But the way that I think it does well is, one, I get to meet other entrepreneurs. I get to learn from you. I get to learn from your experiences, from their experiences. I apply that to my business, and then that becomes income producing.
Right.
Also on the other side of that, it's exposure,
Mm-hmm.
and we touched on that earlier on. It's exposure for Michael Esposito Inc. It's exposure for Denton. It's exposure for you.
Mm-hmm.
It's not direct exposure,
Right.
but it's exposure. It's a way to get my name out there
Right.
so that people can know who I am. And then there's another term that is kind of like leaving my mind right now. I can't think of it. You might be able to get it, but where it puts you in a position where you're an industry leader,
Mm-hmm.
where you're a thought leader. That's the word that I was thinking of.
Okay.
You're a thought leader, so it gives that off as well. Where I do public speaking workshops. I have a YouTube channel. Now I have an insurance company.
Right.
But by
You're very
having
diversified, you girl. Yeah.
by having a podcast and by speaking with other business owners, I'm now a thought leader.
Right.
So I think it also adds that credibility. Again, the way that you make money is building a community and building an audience.
Right.
But right now, no,
Yeah.
there's nothing in it other than getting to meet a cool guy like you.
Yeah. Well, I admire your grit and everything you're putting into this to make it successful, and you're realizing your hands are on multiple things. So it's super cool. I think it's awesome. So
And-
I respect that.
And I appreciate the question. And, part of the reason why I didn't want to answer it off air was because of this next part, which has to do with why I started the podcast, which I never get to talk about on the show because it's really always about my guest. And
Right.
it's going to be about Brian, I promise. But and this is helpful for you too, Brian, as you answered my questions, it's about my audience and it's about helping them be able to move on in their career. Everybody who's listening right now,
Right.
it's to help that person, whoever they are, wherever they are in their life. If they're 11 years old like your son here,
Right.
or they're 30 years old or 40 years old trying to start their next career, they're learning from your stories, from your family stories,
Yeah.
on how to level up, how to go from executive to C-suite, how to go from a job to starting a business. And for me, I started the podcast for that same reason. I started the podcast, I was an employee somewhere, and I wanted to own my own business, and I wanted to learn from other entrepreneurs on how to do that.
Right.
And that's why I started the Michael Esposito Show.
That's awesome. I love stories. I love stories of different businesses unrelated to what I do, because I know my industry, I know everybody in it, and you know the stories, but when you venture outside of areas that's not your expertise, just listen to stories, how people get started, and what it took to get where they're at, and what it continues to take to continue to moving forward. It's awesome. You know what I mean? I'd love to hear all about it.
Grit is like the key word in
Yeah.
everything that you said there.
Yep.
And we'll talk about that in your journey, and your grandfather's journey and great-grandfather's journey, because what I've learned with business and what I've learned through all the different stories that I've had here on the show and through Audible and all the different books and everything is there's no difference between a successful entrepreneur and somebody who just has an idea. The only major difference is whether they act on it, pursue it,
That's right.
and then overcome the challenges through persistence.
That's right.
And that's it. That's the only difference.
That's right. Persistence is the key word too, because you're gonna, you might have an idea, and you're gonna always have the naysayers. You're always gonna folks are gonna say like, you know what, it's a dumb idea. No, you shouldn't do that. But I guarantee I can't imagine how many ideas get pushed to the side because people get that negative feedback and they don't pursue their dream. They don't pursue that idea. But if you got grit, there was a saying, I'm sure you've seen it all over the internet or at different times, that an entrepreneur works 80 hours to avoid working 40. And it's true because, it couldn't be more true.
Yeah, that's definitely true.
Yeah.
But you love it,
Yeah.
I love it. I was speaking with my wife about that the other day, and I forgot what we were talking about, but I was just saying, I think I was just talking about my schedule and how it's just like, I go from working all day at like today, for instance, I'll be doing all this, then I bring my girls to ballet.
Right.
And then at ballet, I do some work there. I have my
Sure.
laptop and I start
Yeah.
doing some work there and doing emails and everything. But I love it.
Mhm.
I just love it. I just enjoy it. It's different.
It's something about running a million miles an hour, and I'm ingrained into that mentality. Just with our company and our family, it's always how we've been. So when you do slow down, you don't know what to do with yourself, right? So it's like it's just a lifestyle you're used to, and running it at this pace. And like you said, and today with technology, you can be at ballet and still maybe take a phone call or do some text while you're there. And
I actually planned that time. I bought a laptop intentionally so that when I go there, I know that I'm going to be sitting there.
Yeah.
And I mean, for you and me, like Facebook doesn't exist.
Right.
Like there's no for me, there's no point to be on there other than to market.
Right, exactly. I am, social media is a necessary thing for business, and I know that we use it a tremendous amount. But it's not something that it's not my generation, right? I'm that what they call.
Well, you can't be far off from me. You don't look that much older than me.
I'll be 43 in June, so
all right, good.
I'm in that pre-millennial Gen X time.
Somebody said, what did she call herself? An elder millennial.
Yeah, exactly. They call us the forgotten generation. They say the Xennials. We kind of like half Gen X, half millennial. So
Yeah. Well, Gary Vee, I think, is the one who I had heard this from, where it was. As a business leader, as an entrepreneur, so social media is wonderful for entertainment value.
Oh, absolutely,
it's wonderful.
100%.
And
if you're watching it before we came in here,
and if you're working, like you said, the 40-hour work week, and you're just enjoying, whatever it is that you're doing, social media is wonderful. Enjoy yourself, see your friends and family there. But if you're an entrepreneur, if you're a business leader, you're trying to succeed, be a creator.
Absolutely right.
Be somebody who produces on social media, not a consumer on social media, which is a big difference. But I also want to get into now Edward.
Yeah.
Your great-grandfather, 1928, founded this company.
Yep.
We think about 1928, just sitting here for a second here. I'm 40, by the way, so I'm not too far off from you. And I was just having this conversation during drop-off. I was dropping off the kids this morning. And one of them, he's also, I think he just turned 11, Ryan. And we were just talking about music from the 80s because the 80s came on.
Right.
And I was like, man, the 80s, that must feel like forever ago to you, right?
I put up my son. I was like, oh, Dad, I love this old car. This 1994 Chevrolet Caprice. I'm like, what? I was 15, you know what I mean? So it's like, it's funny how, our 11-year-olds think of what's old. You know what I mean?
Right.
So.
So I was telling him, I said, it's funny because I would listen to songs with my dad and they're from like the 40s or 50s. And I'm like, man, the oldies, right?
That's right, yeah.
And now we're going back to 1928. Right. So your great-grandfather founded the company. Do you know how old he was when he did it?
I don't. So the story goes, as I was always told, my great-grandfather, Edward Amthor, was from Ellenville, New York. He was a blacksmith. And my father's family, was from up there, other side of the mountain in Ellenville. And he was a blacksmith. He shoot horses. He started, obviously before the Depression. So I don't know how many years he did it. I know he did it until I think into the 30s. Then my grandfather at the time from Ellenville was over there. Him and my grandmother got married, and they had 4 children. My father was the second of 4, and he had a welding shop, and he worked on the aqueduct, which brought the water from Sutherland County down to New York City.
Right.
And then they
That was big.
That was huge.
That was a big move in this area.
Yep. So he was a welder on that, and then which brought him down to Walden, which is where the company was originally. The blacksmith shop was in Ellenville, but then it was in Walden. It was called Amthor Welding, and my grandfather had a welding shop there. And into the 40s, he worked on farm machinery, and he was, and again, I was told that he was supposed to be drafted, but they figured because his efforts here on the home front, helping the farmers and things like that, that he was more, it was better for him to be home. So he stayed here and he worked on farm machinery and did a lot of different things. Any type of really truck equipment he worked on.
This was your dad you're talking about?
My grandfather.
Your grandfather.
My grandfather,
And your grandfather's name was?
William Amthor.
I'm trying to get the lineage here. So you had Ed's great-granddad, then you had William.
Then Butch was my father.
Butch was your dad.
Then me.
Okay.
And then maybe hopefully someday William.
William.
Yeah.
William the what? The third?
No,
the
actually
second?
he'd be the first actually because he's not he wouldn't be a junior, so.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So I don't know that whole lineage thing.
Yeah, me either. I probably screwed it up.
So, just from the story I got there, and forgive me if I might have mixed some things up here, but your great grandfather Ed,
right,
who founded the company. So it wasn't always Amthor International.
No.
It was just kind of like a little blacksmith business.
Right. It was. I think it was called like Eddie Amthor's Blacksmith Shop. Right.
But it was a blacksmith business.
Yes.
And then your grandfather then worked kind of in it.
Yep.
and then your dad kind of also worked in it, but it seems like expanded it a little bit.
Yeah. So what happened was my grandfather and my grandmother was also involved in the business with my grandfather in the 40s, and as the business built up. My father, Arnold Amthor, got involved. I want to say around 54. Like 1954, working side by side with my grandfather. I think he was like 12 or 13 years old at the time.
Okay.
So going to school, working part-time, learning the ropes,
Right.
getting his hands dirty, helping to work with him. They worked side by side doing what they did. And it wasn't until the early 60s when they actually got involved in what is now what we do as a global company, building truck tanks.
Right.
And my father decided to branch off into that market, taking on lines, buying the product and reselling it, building up a business that way. And then my mother got involved after my oldest brother was born, working in a company in the mid '60s right after they got married.
What did she do?
My mom,
Yeah.
she worked in, she handled the money.
She was finances.
Yeah, she still does to this day, so for sure.
I'm afraid to let my wife in the company and do that.
Yeah, it was great. My grandparents and my parents worked very close together, side by side. I was able to see, couples work together without killing each other.
Right.
You know what I mean? So.
And I just want to mention that when I say I'm afraid of it, it's because of my spending habits.
Yeah, right.
She'll be like,
Yeah.
"What are you spending all that money on those cups for?"
Yeah, that's right. And today it's funny because we're we'll talk about this more, but we're very blessed and fortunate where we're at and everything. But still, and any major purchase has to go through mom. So it's like if I want to build a building or if I want to buy an expensive piece of machinery, I had to get mom's approval. So.
Which you actually just did very recently.
Yeah.
You bought a $1 million robotic piece of machinery.
Yeah, we over time when my parents built our factory in Virginia in 1992. It was supposed to be built here in New York, but it didn't happen for a couple of reasons. But we ended up in Virginia, which is about 9.5 hours away.
Mm-hmm.
It's a wonderful community. In fact, was just there last week for the week, and so when they built the business, they had no orders. It was at the time of the recession of the early '90s. So I remember being 12 years old. It was the summer of the if you remember the Dream Team, right? Yeah. So I remember I was so angry because I had to go to Virginia and I missed a couple of the games because I was down there, So I went down with my parents, and after they made the deal to put the building down there, and I saw this flat land. And I don't know what I was 12 years old, right? I missed the Dream Team games because it wasn't on our hotel, didn't have them on the TV. So, and I remember seeing flat land, and it was my parents' dream to do this, and and never realized where 30 years where it'd be where it is now, they started out with nothing down there, and I think there's a video on our Facebook page today, but it's about ironically not just coincides with the show, but really, how they started out, that everything was collateralized. My father would work 15, 17, 18 hours a day building the tanks by hand. So they decided instead of buying the product, they wanted to build it and have control over your future and be able to, because when you buy a product from another company, right, you're at the mercy of that company. Because that company goes belly up or they have a problem, they can't deliver, it affects your business. So if you go out and you start up your own manufacturing, you control your destiny that way. So that's what my father wanted to do, and my mother both.
Can we stay there for a second?
Sure.
I don't want to distract you from your next
fine.
thought.
Yeah.
I think that's a really great point to make in the entrepreneurial path, in that creating your own destiny.
Mm-hmm.
I think that there's so many businesses out there where you can just kind of jump into and you're buying product overseas,
right. Mm-hmm.
Specifically, countries like China or India or all these other countries where it's much less expensive
mm-hmm.
To buy it from overseas than
Sure.
to make it here.
Yep.
With that thought in mind, when you think about building a business, and I think we're answering the question, or you've already answered it, but I kind of want you to just even go further for our listeners here, is how important do you see it as today, in today's day and age,
mm-hmm.
to look at a business and create the foundation yourself versus going out and shopping for the best products overseas or somewhere else and selling it or relabeling it to then sell it?
That's a good question. So I might have a long-winded answer for you. So, forging your own path, is, every entrepreneur's dream, right? Is being able to achieve that. It's easy to just go into a catalog and buy what you want from other places and put it together. And sometimes it may be even more cost effective. But the thing is, being able to do it by yourself, there is a sense of pride that goes with that. It's kind of like when you go to, I'm an old car guy, my son and I, we go to car shows, and it's like if I go to the car dealership and I buy a new Mustang and I take it to a car show and I win, okay, great, but if I actually restore a car myself by hand and I take it to a car show and it has this different feeling because you were involved in actually building that product. And, we pride ourselves because our name is on everything that we build. So, it's every product that goes out our door has our last name, has that brand that we've developed over time. And it's harder to be able to forge that path because it takes hard work, determination. It takes letdowns because for every it's like ups and downs, right? You have success, you have failure, and you got to be able to ride that wave. The easy way is sure I could go and buy my own stuff. I can buy it and put it together. But at that point in time, you are susceptible to a lot of things that you wouldn't be if you were doing it yourself.
And you become a reseller of those products,
Right.
which is there's nothing wrong with it. It's just
Absolutely
a different
nothing wrong with
industry.
it. Absolutely nothing wrong with it whatsoever. And a lot of companies do it. And I have distribution channels where I sell my products.
Sure.
So there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. So I'm not knocking their business plan because there's
but
companies.
for you, there's an emotional.
Yeah.
Right.
For me, it's different.
Yeah.
And again, we still do it. We still buy products and resell them. In fact, here in New York, we're very large in the. We do a lot of municipal work for the dump truck market here for all the different townships here in upstate New York. So we buy snow plows and resell them and things like that. So there's nothing wrong with that path. But you also got to look at what you're going to be doing. Is it is there a market for it? Is it competitive? Can you make money doing it? Can you get the raw materials to build it? So.
And I think the other piece that you said there that I thought was really important to touch on is you're at the mercy of that channel.
Sure.
You're at the
Absolutely.
mercy of their, and it's also their product quality.
Mm-hmm.
If their quality falls off because of whatever happens in management or in whatever it is, or in their own distribution channels, their quality falls off, that affects you and that affects your company.
Yeah, that's right.
Another piece to it that you mentioned that I wanted to touch on was the finances of it all. Of I think. And again, I might be misspeaking here, but just based off of what I've learned from different entrepreneurs of like, and I'm talking about like Elon Musk's of the world, the Steve Jobs of the world, is that when you build it yourself, it's building it that long term versus that short term, where like Tesla, for instance, Elon Musk looks at something and he goes, why don't we have this built? And they say, well, they don't sell that. And he says, all right, well, then we'll create it.
That's right.
And so you start really, when they talk about disrupting an industry, you really start disrupting an industry.
Yeah, that's my father's brain. He, when we opened up the factory, and I say we, but when they opened up the factory back 30 years ago in Virginia.
Hey, listen, you missed Dream Team games.
Yeah, I know.
You were a part of that.
That's right. That's right. And in fact, just out of spite, I recently just bought the starting lineup. I bought the 1992 starting lineup Dream Team case, and I put it in my office down there. So it sits there. So I reminded myself every time I go to my office, so I could at least get to see the figures in my office. But,
William, can you name at least one or two people on the Dream Team?
No.
Not one?
No.
Michael Jordan?
Michael Jordan.
No, I know him, but I don't know him.
My heart hurts. Now you're going to get the tough question. Limousine.
Scene. What do you mean?
Spell it.
No,
Oh. Spell it?
Can you?
Yeah.
I can't tell if it's right or wrong, so go for it.
LIMOS. I don't know.
No,
Well, that's okay. It's close.
all right, he's still going to score high on the spelling.
Give me A for effort.
I gave you limousine because my cousin Kezia was in a spelling bee. I don't know what grade it was, but that was the one that got her. Was the word limousine. So learn limousine.
Okay, we're gonna work on it.
Learn limousine.
That's right. That's right.
No, just having a little fun with you over there. But yeah, so you were.
Yeah. So my father built machinery that we actually still use today. Because when you start the company, as an entrepreneur. You might not have the $1 million like we have now to go out and buy a robotic machine or whatever you need to do. He built it by hand. So, what costs today, let's say $750,000 to buy, he built it with scrap metal and which probably cost $10,000 to build. So, and that's how you do it. You know what I mean? And we still use that machine to this day.
Wow.
So if we replace it, I just tell him because he has a lot in his brain, right? A lot of things. I said you need to get that stuff on paper because you're a different type. You're a business person than I am, so you have more creative sense than I do. So I need to take whatever is in your brain and get it on paper because it's important because that was the foundation. That's how we got my grandfather and father and even great grandfather. I'm assuming I never got to meet him, but could build things and be able to. So when someone came to them and wanted something unique or done, they knew that we could do that, and that was the secret of our success. Was if everybody else said no, we said yes, right? So we were able to be that custom type make company to build the products that people always wanted that no one else would even touch. So and it comes down to the machinery we used in our manufacturing process.
You mentioned about getting your dad's brain on paper, and I think that's also really important for people. Big corporations have that. They have that mapped out perfectly to the T, down to the training department for their salespeople of here's the training handbook, here's the playbook, say these words, and you will sell everything in our line. And I think that's where a lot of the smaller businesses, not that yours is small by any means, but smaller than these larger ones that we're talking about here, I think that's where there's an opportunity to really get yourself leveled up. Is there any plans right now in the works, or do you have things that you already do where you document processes?
Oh yeah, all the time. I
speak to the importance of that.
Oh, it's very important. You got to document everything, and and I also feel it's important too. As a manager, is to have the right people in the right places. The right employees. Doing the right job, finding what their skill sets are, to help you be successful. Even though we're a large company, whatever you want to look at it, small business in the eyes of the government, but we're the largest in our industry, and it's just key, especially to have these what they call SOPs, right, standard operating procedures in place for your people as they come on board, and to be able to do their job, and even for me too as well.
I wanted to ask you about the family dynamics in that. When I think about our business leaders, they're people that are graduating college and they're going into some sort of profession and climbing the ranks, right, and going to the C-suite. I think about our entrepreneurs, they're either going to college and doing the same thing, or they're not going to college or trying to find their path and all that other stuff. And then there's people like yourself, fourth generation. So there's this, on one side, I think from the outside, they view it as, boy, you're so lucky. You're so lucky. You have a family business that's going to get, as quote on air quotes here, right, handed over to you, right? And there's this idea that it's easy. I would say, from my perspective now, looking at it and from interviewing people like yourself, there's a tremendous amount of pressure that comes with it. But I would like you to kind of jump in there, because you did mention to me that when you graduated Marist College, and I throw Marist College in there because go Red Foxes, right? Because we're both Red Fox graduates. When you graduated there, you had no intention to enter the family business. No,
I didn't. So at the time when I was in high school, it's fun, it's a story I like to tell. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was in high school. All my friends were taking SATs. They were getting ready to go to school. I wasn't comfortable moving away at the time. I'm very much a family guy. My grandfather was still alive at the time, so I was going to go to a community college. Nothing wrong with that, and figure out what I wanted to do. And my father, just to give you an idea, it was May of my senior year. So I graduate in June. I've not taken my SATs yet. Okay, now people take them in their junior year, right? So college wasn't a thing in my family. My father was flying to Virginia, and ironically, he was on a plane next to a Marist recruit. He or she at the time was telling my father about Marist. My father comes back and goes, maybe you should look at going to Marist. I'm like, I'm not going to get into Marist. I said, I haven't taken my SATs yet. I'm going to go to community college. He goes, well, take your SATs. So long story short, I took my SATs, and I was able to get into Marist as I was a commuter. I wasn't going to stay there, so I commuted. I live across the river. So got into Marist. I was like, my first semester did not do well. Then I was able to get more acclimated, and my grades got a lot better. As I got into my years at the college, and I look back at them now, and they were one of the greatest times of my life. I love being there. It's a wonderful school. So, I didn't know what I wanted to do once I got out of school. So one of my professors, his name was Derek Weinkoop. He was an accounting professor, and he's now president of Walton Savings Bank. And I wanted to get an internship. So, I applied to Disney and places like that, and I actually was hired by Disney. But the college, at the time, they had these really different ways for jobs, which they were like glorified terms for ticket takers and working at the shops, selling T-shirts and stuff. But you get that experience. And Marist at the time said, if you want to do it, we're not giving you credit to go down there and sell tickets and have fun at Disney. So I was like, all right. So I gave up my Disney dream for my internship. And I was offered a position in a financial institution, which is now, it was in Walden at the time. And this gentleman offered me an internship, and so I did. I went into the financing world. So I had an internship, which turned into a full-time job once I graduated from Marist. So, I still worked in a company part-time, helping mom and dad out and doing different things. My brother at the time was still in the business. He's no longer, he is got multiple sclerosis, so he is home. But, so I worked in the business part-time, and worked in the finance full-time, working in a bank, being a marketing guy for a small community bank. And so still not knowing what I wanted to do, and I was in my early 20s. And so at the time, my parents, I talked to my dad, and the business was starting to grow and opportunities. I'm like, all right, let's give it a shot, right? So, so where this is going is long-winded, but, the opportunity, and this is the thing I told William, I was only 11, but the years that I was not in the business was great because I was able to work for somebody else that wasn't my parents. I was able to see what it's like having a boss that wasn't my father or my mother, and learning. And they let me make mistakes. I learned, I listened, and I now looking back as a business owner and a manager and an employer, things that I did, I'm like, damn, I would have fired my butt after the first year. But they were resilient with me and let me learn and they gave me opportunities. And so I was able to take what I learned and bring it to the company and bring that experience that really was a good start foundation, because it's so easy to get into that, the boss's kid, that role, right? So you get into the business, and I came on board, and working side by side with my family has been wonderful. But working for your family is not easy. It is not having your parents as your boss. It's not it's a lot easier working for somebody else. Let me tell you, hands down, because when you work for somebody else, you could be a diligent worker, a great employee. But at 5:01 or 5:30 or whenever you go home, you can turn it off. You can turn it off and go home and focus on your family. And, I may have said this to you earlier, it's like you have two marriages, right? I got a beautiful wife at home, but I also got my marriage to my job. Because when you go home, and even to this day, I'll sit down with my parents, have a cup of coffee, and the conversation's about the business. did this go? Did that go? Did payroll this guy? Why this guy didn't show up? And you're married to it. To be an entrepreneur, you need to accept that your life. You don't run the business runs you. Mm-hmm. So you become the business, and and it's and again, there's pros and cons to that, right? There's more cons than pros, but you got to understand that you feel everything, and everything that goes great is great, but everything that goes bad, you feel it too. Yeah. And it affects you. It does add years. This is why when you look at a president when they go in for day one, and when they leave at after the 4 years, what they look like.
They look tired.
Exactly. That's just like being an entrepreneur. And running your business and dealing with the day to day. It's very, very difficult.
Hey, William, I get on the mic for a second. I'm interested, just as a follow up to what the story your dad was just sharing here. As of right now, with no ideas of or pressure into how to answer this, just your own thoughts. What is it that you think that you want to be when you graduate school or do? Do you have any interest in the family business right now? You do?
Yeah.
You do? Yeah, you seem like you do.
Yeah, he's around it a lot, you know what I mean? And he's gotten, again, he'll probably change his mind 57 times before he gets out of college.
But
he has to get an education. He has to, have that. And, I want him to go out and get a job. Yeah. I want him to go and get yelled at by somebody else. I want him to have that experience that I had that which was the best thing that was for me, to work for somebody else for a while. And then when you got that foundation, then we'll talk about opportunities for you down the road. Sure. And you're not going to come in and, when I was younger, we had a parts department, and you would stock shelves, and you start there and you work your way up. And the thing is, employees need to see that you aren't handed anything. That you're willing to get your hands dirty. That you're willing to put the time in. If you show up at 10 o'clock in the morning and take a 3-hour lunch and go home at 2. And what do you call? They see that, and the thing is, you need to.
Well, and just to touch on that, and that's respect.
You got to. That's right. You have to earn respect.
You lose that respect.
Exactly, and the thing is, you have to earn it, and you earn it, okay? Because being the boss's son, you have to. It's hard to earn it because they automatically think that you're getting the handouts, and it's far from the truth. But to earn respect, they got to see that you're willing to do what it takes to get there. You know what I mean? So
it's
your thought. The generation before you sacrificed a lot to get where it's at, and so they made sacrifices so you don't have to. But sacrifices continue on. They don't stop. They're just different sacrifices.
Right.
So,
Well, that's because you guys are also continuously evolving the company.
Right.
We didn't even get into that where, you started off as a blacksmith shoeing horses.
Right.
And now you're building tankers.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So there's also this thing where your family didn't just look at it and go, that's all we're going to do.
Mm-mm.
Because then you could put that in autopilot. Right. And to your point,
right.
It could have been an autopilot from your dad's generation into yours, and all you had to do is just show up behind a desk.
Right. Exactly right. So the thing is, like your business, right? You mentioned before you're in insurance and you're in radio and you're doing things. Diversification is key to success. Look at how GE has evolved over time, okay? Right. Look how other companies have evolved. Ford, paints colors other than black, right? And like they used to say, buy any car as long as it's black. So, you as a business to be successful, because in a family business, going me, 4th generation, now my parents are still involved in the business with hands-on, okay? So I hope it's 100 years from now when they're retired in Florida and I'm doing this on my own. The rate of failure for 4th generation family business is like in the upper 90s.
Wow.
So the odds are against me, right? So, and then I don't even know what it would be for him. But the thing is, you have to be able to be diversified and be able to change. Okay, if you continue to do the same thing, it will fail. You will just fizzle out. So we build tankers for the oil industry, obviously, and the wastewater industry. Now there's certain things, like we build trucks for the wastewater industry. People are always going to go to the bathroom, right? So, we build vacuum trucks that suck out septic tanks and things like that. So that's always going to happen, right? That's always going to be something. But the oil industry, who knows? If cars they're saying that by 2035, the majority of the cars on the road are going to be electric. They're not going to need gas. They're not going to need oil, right? So, and if homes start heating their homes alternatively, not heating oil, they're not going to need heating oil trucks. So what does Amthor do in 20 years? So that's my job now, because my father and grandfather had the foresight to look and make the changes over time. So now I got to look at the next 20 years. Now I'll be in my 60s. I won't be able to retire yet. And, the Amthor men don't retire. Now, my wife thinks she's telling me things a little bit differently. She's like, I think that, you're going to do things a little bit differently than your father and grandfather. But you got to think, what I mean? My wife's got a Tesla, right? And it's like, and we love it right now with the
Sure.
cost of fuel. But, who knows what 20 years it's going to be and what we'll be doing. I could be making, who knows, airplanes. But so.
That was just amazing what you just said there. I looked at the timestamp here because I was just like, all right, we got to remember at 43 minutes, this is what he just said, gold here.
Right.
And what I pulled from that as gold is you're talking about this planning for the future, this not being satisfied with the present. Well, wrong. You are satisfied with the present, but not accepting that as all that it is.
Yep.
Seeing it for what it is, but understanding that there is a need to change, to diversify, and to create more, because as your son's generation comes about and whoever takes over the company or you sell it to it later on, it has to be in a place that it can continue. And that is where, when you talk about that 90%, and this is an assumption coming from me, but I believe that that's where that mistake happens, is that they're satisfied with the present, and then they go, okay, we'll ride this out for the next 20 years. And then 20 years hits, and the big change happens, and everybody goes, what do we do now? You're too late.
You're too late.
You're too late, and you can't be too late. You got to be there. And when you bring up GE and Jack Welch and all that stuff, you look at GE and a company and what they started with, which I can't remember exactly how they started, but they certainly weren't selling the thing that they're selling today.
No, absolutely not. It's like in a marriage or a friendship or wherever it happens to be, you get in a rut, right? You get in a rut because you just get comfortable with things are going, and the thing is, you just let, at that point, things just kind of start to sail. And it's the same thing in business. If you get in that rut and you just kind of sailing along, the end might not be as good as you think it is. So you need to constantly reinvent yourself. Constantly put that effort forth to constantly change and be able to have that foresight.
I love that you used the word rut, and I'm re-listening to Think and Grow Rich, which is a wonderful book by Napoleon Hill, and I got to thank my cousin Monica for sending it to me via Audible. I was just listening to it, and they were just talking about getting into a rut. And he defines, it was such an important word, that he defines what rut means. And it has to do with being satisfied to the point where you have no desire to exceed your what you're able to do, your abilities. And so that's really what a rut is. A rut isn't that you suck at something.
No.
A rut is just that you're just in the same place.
Right, you're comfortable, you're satisfied, and it's not really a negative term, but it is a negative term. Being satisfied and comfortable is not really a negative, bad thing to a point. It's just how you handle it, right? So,
you have to understand that if you're going to stay satisfied and comfortable, it's going to end at some point.
Exactly. Life is thing. Nothing is forever, right?
You can only stay on a hammock for so long.
Exactly right. 100% right, for sure. Yep. And it's key. My father and grandfather always had that foresight of what to do next, and that's what's brought success to this family. I
think that's what also makes it fun.
It's fun. Don't get me wrong.
Right?
You have to love what you do, right? They say if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life.
Right.
There's never been a day where I've woke up and said, I don't really want to go to work today. You know what I mean? Because I love what I do. I love the people that I work with, and my employees work with me. They don't work for me because, I surround myself with the best people, no matter what their position is. Every person in our company, whether it's the New York company or the Virginia company or, they all play an important role in our success.
Yeah, you mentioned that too in your bio to me about that you like to hire people that are even smarter than you.
Absolutely.
And you brought up Henry Ford. That's something that Henry Ford always talks about.
Absolutely. And one of the other gentlemen, which I'm very always fond of reading about, is Lee Iacocca. I know who that is. He said that he hires smarter people than he is, and he just sits back and watch them go. And I'm, the thing is, and you gotta take your ego out of it. And so the thing is, when I hire people, I want them to be smarter than me. You know what I mean? And I tell you, I said, look, at the end of the day, I am your boss on paper, right? So I have more responsibilities than you, of course, but we work together. We're on the same level. You know what I mean? I want you to be be happy with your job. I want you to love your job. I want you to wake up and come to work like I do and love being here. And I want to create the environment that you want to go anywhere. So when I hire people, I want them to be smarter than me because it's like anything. It's like the president's cabinet, right? You know what I mean? You want the best people that work alongside you. And that's what I have, for sure.
Yeah, and I think that's another really important part of when you're building a business or when you're hiring inside of a business it's because then you're also able to kind of step away and work on other projects, right?
Oh, absolutely.
You're able to then say, you know what, you got this. Kind of like how I was saying my admin. If I put together this playbook and I hire somebody who I know can do the job and is capable, now I can step away, you know, and it just allows us more freedom.
When you hire that type of person, you're 100% right, because you can say and you want the type of person that thinks for you. It's like my wife, I'm sure, can finish my sentences, good or bad, right? So the same thing with the folks that I work with. If I say I want to see this task completed, and in the roadmap to get to that task completed, they know what I want. And I'm comfortable that they're going to get it done and get it done properly. So like you said, I can then focus on the opportunities for the business. What do I need to focus on? You know what I mean? And really to kind of grow the business and grow the company.
Yeah, and we were talking too about how I think that's what makes it fun, in that, again, going back to the whole innovating and doing new things. I think that's why you're in the fourth generation seat. Is because your great-grandfather did it one way, your grandfather did it another way. And I think by having that freedom that you built into that family structure, maybe it was intentional, maybe it wasn't intentional, but by allowing for that freedom for each generation to kind of do their own thing, allowed for that creativity to flow, allowed for that fun to still be there and alive, and that passion that you currently have that I see. I think that's sometimes what happens in these family businesses, which is kind of like how I teed up the question too about why they do die off, is that the pressure that I think the lineage feels is that they have to do things the same way that their great-grandfather did or great-grandmother did.
Right.
They have to do it the same way and to the same standards, and they don't want to do that. And there's nothing wrong with not wanting to do it. They want to do it their way. They want to create. They want to be innovators like you and I want to be, right? And if the structure isn't there to allow for that, I think that's where it breaks as well, and that's where the passion dies out, right?
Yeah, and so the thing is, it's like if you have ideas and creative things and you keep getting knocked down, you lose that will to want to do it. And like at the end of the day, like, what am I doing this for? Screw it, I'm done. I'll do something else. And so the thing is, my parents allow me that capability to be able to be creative. We're business partners, but allow me to come up with the foresight and ideas as I hand out responsibilities over to be able to be creative in my own way, because my creativity is different than my father's,
Of
right?
course, right.
And Williams is going to be different than mine.
Right.
So the thing is, I got to remember, if I'm lucky enough in 11, so maybe hopefully 20 years, right? And if we're working together, that he'll come to me with ideas. I'm like, well, I never would have done it that way. But I got to think.
Do you have any ideas, William? Do you have any that you want to share?
Not that much.
Not that much yet?
it's...
If you could solve the electric thing for us.
We were talking about that. And
that's the $1 million idea.
Working on opportunities in our market and how to adapt to that. And we have some I got some employees that come to me with some awesome ideas. And it's funny, I got this one employee, he goes, all right, I got this idea. How much money can I get in R&D? I'm like, and they're always thinking. So, and employees that do that, they're engaged. They love their job. They love doing what they do, and they're thinking on long term too. Because think about it, if they're 40, they got to work till at least 65. They want the company to continue on, right? So they want to keep up with ideas. So they have a job in 20 years. So
So how do you respond to that employee that says?
Oh, I love it. It happened to me last week. In Virginia, one of my employees comes to me and he's like, well, how much money can I have in R&D? I'm like, I don't really have an R&D budget, so it's pretty much, what do you want to do? What do we need to get? And let's just do it, right? So I'm not that rigid. I have only so much money, but I'm like, all right, what's your idea?
Right.
He tells me, and I'm like, okay, well, let's try that. What about this? What about this? I ask questions, and he tells me, yes, no, we can do this, we can't do this. I'm like, all right, and it's to address this electric thing, right? Because they're saying that Mack trucks, the bigger, the commercial vehicles that we purchase, they're looking at going more and more electric. So I'm like, all right, so what do we have to do as a bodybuilder, as a tank company, to adapt to that? So they came back with some really awesome ideas, and I embrace it. You know what I mean? And I tell them, I said, come back with 10 ideas, and if one of them work, it's great. You know what I mean? And I encourage creativity and thought process, and I'm such a proponent of education and everything like that for my people. So
and it sounds like the culture that you've created at your company and at your father and family, parents, mother as well, right? Because she's obviously involved in the business. You've created a culture of trust. Because for someone to come to you with their idea, what's to stop them from going to a bank and saying, hey, can I get a loan? I got a great idea, right?
Exactly.
So they're coming to you.
Yeah. And, again, being a boss or a business owner or being married, it's the same. It has a lot of the same attributes. You got to have trust. You got to have communication. You got to have, you got to work hard, right? So there's a lot of similarities between the two. And it's just what it takes.
And there's another thing that you mentioned to me earlier, which was you got to know who your employees are. And you spend time getting to know their families, their hobbies.
Being at least in my role, and what drives me is I am responsible for 150 families every day. So if I don't do my job correctly, or if I don't do my job the right way, I'm affecting 150 families. I'm affecting 150 husbands, wives, children. Maybe people who work for me, their kids, they got a college loan out for their kid because they got a good job. So if I screw up, right, I'm not only affecting myself, I'm affecting my community, my employees, their families. So that's part of the stress it takes to run a business, because you need to make the right decisions. And, when we don't make decisions off the cuff, I'm more of a thinker and trying to think about the big picture. And I go to some of my key management team, and I ask them, okay, what do you think if I do this? And I want feedback. And I tell people, don't be a yes man. Tell me that I'm effed up. Tell me this is stupid. Tell me whatever. Give me your honest opinion. So, because as a boss, you got to think beyond yourself. You got to take yourself out, because you're responsible for a lot of different, lot of more than just yourself. So it's important.
That only leads me to ask you the question about COVID-19 and what happened over the past 2 years, and this virtual world that most of us were able to thrive in. I mean, for me, it's why I'm able to open up my insurance company, because prior to COVID, for me, if I didn't have a brick and mortar, I wouldn't be able to open up. Right. And I didn't have the finances to open up a brick and mortar. So when we went to this virtual world, it created an opportunity for me to be able to go to the carriers and say, hey, I have a virtual office, and they had to say okay to that. Right, sure. And so it was great for me, and I would say the professional world, in sense of like the I don't know if white collar is still a term that we can use, but I guess I'm using it now. Yes, versus where it's manufacturing. The people have to come in, they have to see each other, stand right next to each other. I did watch the video on your website, and I mean, these people are only about a foot or two away from each other welding. They're very close together. They're in close confinement spaces and everything. How did you guys adapt to this?
Well, let's say it was March of 2020, right?
Yep,
when COVID
that's
came
right.
out.
Yep.
And what do you call it? So I sat down with my team, and I was like, all right, we got to be at the forefront of this. And so, we didn't know what this was, right? We didn't know, was it going to kill people? I mean, obviously,
right.
No. People,
yep,
I didn't mean, but if somebody gets it, are going to be hospitalized, or what's it going to do? If one person gets it, do I have to shut the plant down? No one knew, right, in the beginning. And I'm thinking, okay, well, if the plant gets shut down, do you got to pay people? What do you do, right? So your mind starts racing. All these different scenarios come up in your head. So I got to give it to my team. in both companies, and they jumped on this immediately. And we there actually were grants that we got for PPE or PPP for masks and 55-gallon drums of hand sanitizer and Lysol and everything like that. Then we immediately cut off all visitors from coming into the plant. We immediately started doing temperature checks and putting very strict rules and regulations when it comes to COVID. And I think because we got on it immediately in April of 2020, it really allowed us to be open and successful through the entire time. We didn't have to shut down at all. Now, and we, even in the beginning, Billy was around, Johnny, and Johnny's sister's brother was around somebody who had COVID. Okay, what does that mean? Was my employee got it because he was around 3 levels of people? And so you're like, all right, well, and you had to come up with a policy for it, and everybody worked through it, and it really didn't affect us as bad as it did other companies. Now, we had people out once in a while with it. They did their 2 weeks, or it was 10 days, whatever they changed it to, but knock on wood, I think because we were so we jumped on it early, we were able to handle it properly and do the right thing.
So this might be just me being ignorant to the laws and rules that happened during that time.
Yep.
So your warehouse in New York, you didn't have to close it then? You didn't have to close your facility?
No, we didn't have to close it down. Of course, I'm working with 2 different states, 2 different regulations. Okay, what's federal, what's New York State, what's Virginia doing, what's New York doing?
And neither had to shut down?
No, we were very, very lucky, and in that way, we didn't have to shut down. The internet, I think, has changed customer loyalty to a point because it gives them just a broader way of finding what they need. Because as you know, in today's world, it's everything's instantaneous, right? They want it now. They don't want to wait. Grubhub, they don't want to go out. So in our market, there's this new thing where they, what Uber is, of course. They have gasoline Uber for your car.
I know that.
So we're in this big market now where. And it's in major metropolitan areas. It's not up here in upstate New York yet, but you go to Miami, you go to LA, you go to Houston, Chicago. There are companies that through an app will deliver gas to you in your car, in your parking lot, they will do windshield washer fluid, they'll check your oil, they'll put air in your tires on these oil trucks that we build. So, and it's the same thing. It's like, if we're at work and I'm busy and he wants a Subway sandwich, I can go on the DoorDash and it's in our yard in 20 minutes.
Right.
It's that instantaneous, what people want, that instantaneous thing. Right. So with the internet, it's allowed this, and I think that I think it has changed customer loyalty a little bit to where
it's so funny. I think you brought it full circle for us to where we started with why I started the podcast, and we talk about putting ourselves out there and being thought leaders and influencers, and so that people can get to know us on a different level outside of just our businesses. Yeah. And while you were explaining that, I started thinking about it, and you think about the mom and pop shop of the 20s, the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, before the internet. Yep. And in any movie you watch, in any TV show you watch, when you see these mom and pop shops, everybody knows the store owner. Right. Everybody in the community knows the store owner. Mm-hmm. And then there's always, and you watch any of these movies or TV shows, there's always 1 or 2 people lingering in the store that are either playing cards somewhere. It's not even a card store, but they're playing cards in the corner, hanging out. And they all know each other, and everybody that walks through the door, a little bell rings, and everybody knows Brian walked in, William walked in, Amy walked in, right? Yep. They didn't need a podcast to get to know the business owner because they were part of the community. Mm-hmm. And you're right, the internet changed that, and it changed it to where the community kind of disappeared and went online. Yep. And that's why we've had to adapt as business owners and create podcasts so you can get to know us.
So the thing is, we as a business owner, I tell my team, I said, look, the customer has a lot of noise around them now that allows them to have other opportunities. So we have to take and hopefully shrink that noise down to where they don't want to go anywhere else. So create an experience, and I just hired a customer experience specialist, okay? Wow. And I have all these new roles now, and her job is to make sure the customers are taken care of the right way. Because when you're busy, okay, it's hard to be everything for everybody, okay? And you want to be, as an entrepreneur and a business owner and a small business owner, especially a family company, you want to be everything to everybody, but you have to come to the realization that you can't be. So you have people to do their certain things, and her job is to create to create an experience for the customers that they don't want to go anywhere, that they're communicated with, and they know the status of the product and everything like that. So therefore, when they want to buy something new, that they're willing to wait a little bit longer, and they forget that other noise because they had such a great experience with you. Mm-hmm. So that's my goal is to be able to create that role and kind of change that noise a little bit of what else is out there. So.
And that works. I mean, that's why Amazon is successful, mm-hmm. because they created that customer experience that's it's not so personalized as yours, but the customer experience of an expectation of I'm going to get my package in 2 days.
Yep.
They created that, and that's why it works so well.
Right.
You talk about your community, and you talk about how important it is to you, and you're just talking about the factory in Virginia, and that small town there and the opportunities you created there. Mm-hmm. As we start to conclude the show, I like to get into what you do in terms of giving back, mm-hmm. and you mentioned that, and that community is so important to you, to your company, and part of the give backs that you do. You want to share a little bit more about that?
Sure. Here in New York as well, we're very community-minded family. I'm an elected official here in New York. I'm a town councilman in the town of Shawangam. So I've been involved in the community here for a long, long time. Even when I was back years ago, different organizations and stuff. And, being able to, we're very blessed to have what we have, okay? And I thank God every day for being where we're at. So if we can give back and do what we can, it's the first and foremost thing we need to do. And being able to be involved in the community and be able to for so many years we would do a lot. We would kind of stand under the radar. It's that whole humility thing. Some companies, they donate $10. They make a marketing campaign out of it. You know what I mean? And over the years, we have done so many things for the community. But it's like they would go to my father and say, my father, they'd say, Butch, can you build us a new bandstand, or can you build us a new, the goalpost for the football field? Yeah, sure, no problem. Here, I'll do it for you, but don't say where it came from. You know what I mean? So we've always kind of we've done so much, but I got it's always been under the radar because we just like to do it and do what we can. And recently in Virginia, we did a big a food drive during the holidays, and with my team down there, I'm encouraging more community involvement in different organizations to be able to. We're looking at things like Toys for Tots and doing the different fundraisers that way. So there's a lot coming on the forefront to where we're going to be visibly more in a community. But anything we can do. Especially up here in New York with the food pantries during the holidays. We did a big a toy drive donation up here as well with the kids, the children at the was Crystal Run or Garnet Health in Middletown a couple years ago. So being a good corporate citizen it means more to me than being successful in the business world that we're in, because being able to give back to people it's more fulfilling than making the money you make and being a company owner. So.
Yeah, I'm really happy you said all that. I think that there's something to be said about the humility and, as you said, building the goalpost but not telling anybody. Yep. I think that that humility is noble. It's mm-hmm. wonderful. It's really nice to hear, as you just said too, of it's not a marketing play, right? And that's really wonderful to hear. I will say on the other side of that, though, it is also important to hear that you do give back, because, as you just said, to be part of the community and a corporate partner in things, it's important, I think, that people see that and know that you are more than, like you just said, than welding oil tanks. Right. That you're a part mm-hmm. of their community embedded. So I love the humility aspect of it, and I love that you guys continue to give back without needing any type of recognition. And I certainly salute you on that. It's a little bit more challenging in my industry.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, exactly.
But as I conclude here, You said a mantra that you live by is, I think the things you regret most in life are the things you didn't do.
Right.
Which would only lead me to ask you a question of, is there anything that right now at the young age of 43, so you can still do anything that you didn't get to do.
Right.
Is there anything that you didn't get to do yet that you're hoping to do soon?
Oh, I am, again, I say this before, I am blessed with good health. I got a wonderful, loving wife at home, like an amazing son. My parents are still here, so that's all I need to make me happy is my family, because family is first and foremost of anything. So if I was to talk professionally, in our own company, just continue to reinvent ourselves and to grow and look at new opportunities, and to see what else is out there, expansion, growth, into new markets, new areas in the country, new regions. But if it all ended today and I took a 2-month hiatus, I would say probably I would love to work in country music. So I think that would be something I would love to do. So.
Well, it's a door next door.
Yeah, I know.
So
That's exactly right.
We'll walk you over there
There you go.
and we'll fulfill that dream for you.
Awesome. Yeah.
Brian, it's been just wonderful having you on today. I can't thank Sheila enough for introducing us.
She's amazing. I love Sheila. She's helped us in our marketing for several years now, and she's the things she's come up with. We had an app game, and
You're the app game?
Yeah.
I seen the game. I remember that.
Yep. And so she comes back with some ideas. I'm like, whoa, and but they're wonderful, and so creative, and she's been an advocate for Amthor, and really has done a great job for us. I love her. She's amazing.
Yeah, she's a great friend. She's a great partner. With Sheila Gilday Creative, she's an awesome creator. She's created all my logos.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So if you want to see her work, just go to my websites. Hey, William, before we wrap up, is there anybody that you'd like to say hello to? I know you said hi to Grandma before on the phone. Any shout outs you have for your family and friends?
Any say hi to your friends from school?
Yeah, Vladimir and Taylor and Jonah and Grandpa, Grandma, and everybody.
And everybody. All right, man. Well, best of luck on the spelling bee. What's the date on that?
May 25th.
May 25th. Is it virtual or in person?
In person.
It's in person. Where?
At a school in Montgomery, but we're doing it in like different classrooms, not from a big audience, and we go and collect our medals and stuff.
Cool.
Against other 5th graders in other schools.
Harmony Christian School, right?
Yeah.
Awesome, man. Well, best of luck to you. So happy to have you on the show today. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
Brian, thank you for coming
Thank you.
on
I
today.
appreciate it. It's been a wonderful experience. Thank you so much.
Same here, man.
All right.
Cool. And that's a wrap.
Okay. Good deal.